Good morning, everybody. So we are in Unit 1, Diversity in Living World, and we have already begun our Chapter 1, that is Living World. In our previous video, we have discussed about what is living. In that, we had discussion about the different characteristics of living. In that, we discussed all living things can grow, they can reproduce, they can metabolize, they can organize their body, they can consciousness about the particular awareness, in that self-consciousness and importance of living. Today in discussion, I would like to discuss about diversity in the living world. So here we will discuss the diversity in the living world. First of all, we should know what is diversity. Diversity is a variety of living things or non-living things on the earth. So if you look around you, you will find out a large variety of living organisms. In that there may be plants, there may be insects, there may be birds, even pets, even small microorganisms. So they are considered to be having a big diversity. And generally the word we can derive from this, the number of species that are known and described range between 1.7 to 1.8 millions, and this refers to as a biodiversity, or the number and the types of organisms present on the earth. So here, when we discuss about the diversity, in earlier there are millions of plants and animals on this world. We know that the plants and animals in our own area by their local names. These local names would vary from place to place. Even within a country, probably you would recognize the confusion that would be created if we did not find ways and means to talk each other. So to refers to organism, we talk about different organisms are there, their names are there, their nomenclatures and their identifications. So standard forms would be there for their nomenclatures, their organisms, their identification. That already, if you know that we have studied the plant kingdom, animal kingdom, the nomenclatures, how we can give the nomenclatures, how we can give their names, scientific names, species, genus, then identification of their classes. Then one scientific names, if you know that the scientific biologists are giving the name, the scientific names are based on the agreed principles and criteria which are provided in a ICBN, that is the International Code for Botanical Nomenclature, and another that is ICZN, that is International Code for Zoological Nomenclature. So two branches are there which are giving the name, that is nomenclature and identification, ICBN and ICZN. ICBN, that is the International Code for Botanical Nomenclature, and ICZN, that is International Code for Zoological Nomenclature. So here the scientists' names ensure that each organism has only one name. Description of any organism should enable the people in any part of the India to arrive at the same name. They also ensure that such a name has not been used for any other organism. Suppose humans, you know that their scientific name is Homo sapiens. If that name is given scientifically by ICBN, ICZN, so in that Homo sapiens name will not be given to any other species. So that is specific for each and every So here the biologists also universally accepted principles to provide scientific names to known organisms. Each name has two components, one which is generic name and one which is specific epithet. The system of providing a name with two components is known as binomial nomenclature. If one component would be there, it is a monomial nomenclature. If two components would be there, it is a binomial. This naming system given by Carl Linnaeus, already I think you have been taught in 9th standard, the nomenclature, the classification of animals. In that Whitaker's classification you have been taught in that chapter. So here also Carl Linnaeus has given the nomenclature which is being practiced by biologists all over the world. And this naming system using a two-word format was convenient: species and genus. So here the scientific names of mango is written in the Mangifera indica. Like a human, if you know that is a Homo sapiens. The same thing, the scientific name given to the mango, that is Mangifera indica. So different names we have to find out. Tigris, tiger also there, tigris and that. And that is Mangifera represents the genus, while indica represents the species. So on the two bases, genus and species, the Carl Linnaeus given the nomenclature of. So here some rules for the nomenclatures. First is, biological names are generally in Latin and written in italics. They are Latinized or derived from the Latin irrespective of their origin. So first letter it is mentioned we should write in Latin. So biological name should be written in Latin. And second, the first word in the biological name represents the genus, while the second component denote as a specific epithet, means species. Both the words in the biological name, when handwritten, they separately underline and printed in italics to indicate their Latin origin. So here when we write with the hand, so we have to underline this scientific name. Generally we are doing so. And when we are doing print, so it will be in italic form. Fourth is the first word denoting the genus starting with a capital letter, while the species epithet start with a small letter. And it can illustrate with the example Mangifera indica, or Homo sapiens also you can take. Name of the author appears after the specific epithet at the end of the biological name and is written in a abbreviate form, that is a Mangifera indica Lin, and indicate that the species was described by Linnaeus. Okay, so Lin, L-I-N-N, indicate that it described by Carl Linnaeus. Since it is nearly impossible to study all the living organisms, it is necessary to devise some means to make this possible. This process considerably say that it is a classification. Now classification, why we are doing? The questions arise in our mind. The classification we are doing to classify the things, classify the organism, classify the groups in a convenient categories. So classification is a process by which anything is grouped into convenient categories based on the same easily observable characters. For example, we easily recognize groups such as plants or animals, or dogs, cats or insects, because already they are classified. The classification are of two types. We can take example, classification of microorganisms, classification of plants, classification of animals, classification of insects. Okay, so in that way we are easily recognize, we are easily identify them by grouping them into subgroups. So it is very easy for us to identify the particular things in the classification, and after that the categories termed as, that is a taxonomical category, where one branch is divided into many. Suppose one tree, that stem and then different branches. So in that we consider the taxa. So generally when we talk about the taxonomy, it is based on the characteristics. All living organisms can be classified into different taxa. This process of classification is known as taxonomy. So in that two structures are there. One is external and one is internal structure. Along with the structure of cell, the development process and the ecological informations of organisms are essential and form the basis of the modern taxonomical studies. So today in the 21st century, we are using modern taxonomic studies. So here the different characterization, identification, classification, nomenclature are the processes that are basic for the taxonomy. Suppose I can take example of animal kingdom. So what is the beginning of particular animal, and then it's come to the different generation to generation. So that is one branch, one way to find out the taxonomy for the beginning. The taxonomy is not something new. Human beings have always been interested in knowing more and more about the various kinds of organisms, particularly with a reference to their own use. In early days, evolution period, human beings needed to find sources for their basic needs of food, clothes and shelter. And today in the technological world, this classification helps us to identify the various organisms. Human beings were since long before many years not only interested in knowing more about the different kinds of organisms and their diversities, but also relationship among them. This branch of study was referred to as systematics. Nowadays we are using this systematic study with the help of technology. The word systematic is derived from the Latin word systema, which means systematic arrangement of organisms. So therefore we are visiting botanical gardens, zoological gardens, sanctuaries and national parks. And the Carl Linnaeus used Systema Nature as the title of the publication. The scope of systematic was later enlarged to include identifications, nomenclature and classification. The systematic takes into account evolutionary relationship between organisms, how the organisms are interlinked, so that can be studied by the genetically and evolutionary relationship. So taxonomic categories we will discuss in our next video presentation. So up to here the biodiversity, that is with a great glance, the diversity in the living world, the classification, identification and taxonomy, that always crucial. So remember, you have to define what is diversity, what is biodiversity, what is classification, what is systematics and what is taxonomy. So these are the definitions are useful for your exam from the context. So we'll stop here, and in coming video we'll go for the next topic, that is taxonomic categories. So thank you and have a nice day.